Just kidding. My name is Kane. Behind me here is my new daily driver, a 2004 Mercedes E55 AMG. And that's all I'm gonna say about this car for the rest of this and the next several videos, because I'm about to grow a goatee, travel back in time, and be covering this, my 2009 Volvo S80. Ow. This particular car is equipped with a T6 all-wheel drive powertrain option from Volvo, which gives it just shy of 300 horsepower and 300 foot-pounds of torque from an inline-six engine that has a single variable geometry turbocharger. The turbocharger is geared more towards low to mid-range engine RPM driving, so the car is pretty good from a stop, and it's got good passing power on the highway, but it definitely lags on the top end for horsepower and torque. But this isn't really a car that's made for sporty driving or drag racing or anything like that. It's meant to be a luxury car. That power is then routed through a 6-speed slush box transmission. It's nothing to write home about. It's comfortable. It fits a luxury car like this very nicely, but it's not a fast shifting transmission. And from there it goes to a Haldex all-wheel drive system. It's dark out now. I wanted to let the interior of the Volvo cool off before I move it into the garage. And I want to talk a little bit more about the interior. It's a dark leather interior. Even though we're in the end of September now, it's still knocking on 100 degrees Fahrenheit and pretty ridiculous humidity. So I wanted to let it cool off into the hours of the night before I got in it and started sweating my butt off trying to talk about it. But first I need to shuffle the cars around a little bit and get the Volvo into the garage, and I'll show you the plethora of warning lights, which I'll get into later. It's time to try the Volvo. This car's been sitting for a couple of months, and I just realized I left my jump box at work. So fingers crossed, but it may or may not have a dead battery. Nice. I've got the car in the garage now, and it's pretty late at night, so it's cooled off quite a bit. But I wanted to talk about the interior of this car, the executive interior option that was offered with the S80 and the XC90. The executive interior option upgrades the leather and the surfaces to a much higher quality than what comes in the base model. The leather in the seats and the center console, the doors, on the steering wheel, it's all done by a Swedish company called Elmo, not that Elmo. I couldn't figure out through the translation or definition what that name actually meant. I think it's actually just a name like Bob or George. It's just a name. It doesn't seem to mean anything. But anyway, the company's name is called Elmo, and they've been around in Sweden since 1939. The company sells to the automotive industry, for example, Volvo, the aeronautical industry for things like private jets, marine applications, and very high-end Swedish furniture, not IKEA, obviously. I did find out that they are also the company that primarily handles the leather for Koenigsegg. And Koenigsegg, if you don't know, is the Swedish hypercar company. They are kind of an engineer's wet dream on four wheels. Incredible vehicles. But anyway, I thought that was really interesting. The interior design stayed pretty much the same throughout the life cycle of this car, which was a simple ergonomic layout with buttons mainly focused around the center stack here, on the steering wheel, and close to the driver's left hand for the window controls. Very easy, very simple to understand and use. This center stack right here is a kind of flowing waterfall design coming down into the shifter assembly, the cup holders, and the power outlet. The wood piece that finishes this is a single piece design, as well as across the dashboard with another executive interior feature, which is this gorgeous clock. Oddly enough, you have to set this clock manually. It's not connected in any way to the digital clock in the car. And you do that with the two black buttons on either side of the clock, which I thought is a little odd. But anyway, it still looks really nice. It's a nice little design touch for the interior. The seats themselves are these incredibly comfortable plush seats in the front as well as the rear. The front seats are climate controlled, and they're true climate controlled seats. So you've got heating, and you've got a Peltier cooler powered cooled seat feature as well. It's not just a ventilated fan blowing air through the holes, it's an actually cooled seat, and they both still work great actually. The heated rear seats also work incredibly well. The leather in this car, in this particular car, is trimmed out in a very dark blue with this tan contrast piping and stitching. It is an absolutely gorgeous interior, and it has stood the test of time and mileage incredibly well, in my opinion. This car has 170,000 miles on it now, and you really wouldn't be able to tell that at all from the condition of the interior. The dashboard has not cracked or pulled away anywhere. All of the door sills on the inside of the car are in great condition, and even, we'll get a close-up here, the driver's seat bolster has not worn hardly any at all for a car with this kind of mileage. And I'm sure some of you are thinking that I've been keeping this car in the garage. I've treated the leather. I have not done either of these things. The nearly 10 years that it has served daily driver duty for me and my wife, it has spent its time outside in the Texas heat and sun. I have not treated the leather at all. I never felt that it needed it. And clearly, after 170,000 miles of daily use, it hasn't needed any special treatment. It stood up incredibly well. The seats themselves are incredibly comfortable seats, and they are very adjustable. I know there's a lot of companies out there selling, 8, 10, 12-way comfort seats, but like I've noticed in the E55 that I just got, it doesn't quite adjust far enough. It has a lot of adjustments, but it doesn't go far enough to get comfortable. This car has got adjustment to spare for me. I'm 6'1", a little bit lanky build, and I've been able to get this particular car set up perfectly for driving comfort, and the E55 not so much, unfortunately. That was a big disappointment. And this car has a far better interior than the E55. The front seats hold almost completely flat, so you can take a nap in here. They're supportive enough. Again, it's not a sporty car. You're not going to be throwing this around aggressive corners, taking it down the dragon's tail, and driving it seriously. It's not a car made for that. It's just supposed to be a comfortable long-distance cruiser, and it really, really exceeds at that. Another feature that this car has is an incredible stereo system. If you're not aware, Volvo has a reputation for producing high-end cars with absolutely incredible stereo systems. This car definitely rivals, and personally I think it has an edge on the stereo system in Mercedes, E55, and the Land Rover. Volvos from this era were using Dyne audio stereo systems. They sound absolutely incredible. Now I know what you're thinking. A lot of cars offer these kinds of features these days. I am more speaking to somebody who's looking for a good luxury used car in the sub $10,000 price range. And to be honest, there's only one real answer there, the Lexus LS, obviously. But if you're looking for something that drives differently to the LS, maybe a little bit sportier, and has much better styling in my opinion. The interior is much better looking, and so is the outside of this car. Maybe you're looking for something that's going to be close to the reliability of a Lexus LS, but you want something that isn't a Lexus LS, something that isn't so conservatively styled on the outside and the inside, but will still give you the confidence that it's not going to cost you hundreds or thousands of dollars every time something breaks on it. For example, like in a Jaguar XJ, or a Mercedes S-Class, or an Audi A8, a BMW 7 Series, God forbid. Talking about the sub $10,000 category for luxury cars, this car and the Lexus LS, I think, are the two best options, but specifically with this executive interior. I've mentioned a few times the reliability of this car, and while this car specifically may not be the best example, I'm going to go ahead and show you the instrument cluster and all the warning messages. Just keep in mind, there are a few issues that this car has at the moment, but they're not expensive problems. The parts for these cars are not outrageously expensive or hard to get. So let's take a look real quick at the instrument cluster and all of the wonderful warning messages and lights that it has for me. So you can see right there the SRS light pops up. Then we've got the low coolant, stop engine. Of course, we got the left rear tires flat. Engine hood is open. Left door open. Maintenance overdue. Oh no! Bulb failure position lamp. Washer fluid low. And that's about it. Well, I've had this car for the better part of 10 years. It's truly been the most reliable car that I've ever had. At 170,000 miles, it has needed almost nothing but basic maintenance like tires, brakes, oil changes, etc., etc. Unfortunately, earlier this year, 2019, that all went straight out the window. This car has left me stranded about a half a dozen times. And at the very beginning of the year, it had a very expensive problem. I ended up spending about $1,000 just in parts on this issue. The engine oil cooler failed, and what that ended up leading to was the engine pumping approximately 6 quarts of piping hot engine oil straight into the cooling system. This led to a backup at the thermostat and a burst hose, which then sprayed milkshake all over the engine bay. It was a nightmare. I spent 4 hours flushing the cooling system with just regular water to try and get as much of the engine oil out as I could. And then when this happens, you end up having to replace pretty much every significant cooling system hose. So I had to replace upper and lower cooling hoses, the thermostat housing, a lot of the breather hoses, and been about 6 weeks now. I suspect that one of the heater core hoses burst directly due to that oil contamination into the cooling system. Problem number 1, the SRS light was on. This is a significant issue because this car has no temperature gauge in it. You get most of your information through the message center in the instrument cluster, including an engine overheat or low coolant message. This is part of the reason why I'm a little concerned that the engine in this car may have a blown head gasket. I'm not 100% sure about that. I won't know until I've gotten the cooling system repaired. Like I suspect, probably one of the cooling system heater hoses is what exploded around the back of the engine. I can't see that very well because of the design of the engine bay. That's completely obscured from view from up above. You got to take a lot of the engine covers around the back of the engine off just to be able to see that. And that's why I actually ended up possibly driving this car for maybe 2 days with a blown heater core hose. I'm not entirely sure. I didn't notice it until I parked it at home one day. I had needed to drive the car just a couple of days out of the week. I parked it after driving home from work on the second day and smelled coolant as soon as I opened the door. And unfortunately, the SRS warning light on the instrument cluster takes precedence over all the other problems that the car is having. So I never saw the low coolant light. I don't really know when that cropped up. And that's why this car in particular is going to be the focus of this channel for the next several videos. I need to get this car fixed up and ready to sell, at least in good conscience, to its next lucky owner with this gorgeous interior, incredible stereo system. I promised myself I would get this car ready before I do anything with the E55, and the E55 has its share of problems that need to be taken care of, but I have got to get this car fixed up and ready to sell before I do anything to that car. It's taking up valuable real estate in my driveway and in my garage and costing me insurance money month after month. It's gotta go. That's going to be it for this video. This is the first video on this channel, and I'm going to try and keep these videos less than 15 minutes. That's my goal. Anyway, in the next video, I'm going to start tearing into the engine bay of this car, and we're going to find out if it's just a simple coolant hose repair and the engine is okay, or if this video series is about to get a whole lot longer and more expensive than I anticipated. Stay tuned.